Shalom, everybody. Today, I'm talking about how history is actually repeating right in front of our eyes, and not even history that is old. In fact, in some cases, these are present day truths for people in some corners of the planet. But totalitarianism is making a comeback. And the saying goes that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. But I want to let you in on a little secret. There are people who know that forgetting history makes people repeat it, and they use it as a weapon. It used to be used as a weapon to take over countries and to destroy societies and to destroy morality, which is what I'm talking about today. It's communism and fascism. And these were universally rejected concepts in the 1990s. As recent as the 1990s, the United States had gone to actual physical war to defeat the Nazis. And then we went through a period of several decades to defeat the Soviet Union. And both of these countries, these systems were based on totalitarian regimes through awful, awful economic systems. These two terms, communism and fascism, you refer to economic systems that were used to bring about dictatorships, and where all commerce and production became under the control of a centralized government power. Sounds great, right? Father knows best. Except instead of just taking over commerce and production, they took over thought. They took over every actual facet of life. And if you dissented from the beliefs of the government, you went to a gulag to get reprogrammed, or they just killed you. These are awful, awful systems. And the ways that they came about are right in front of us right now. And we have actually duplicated history, which is the reason why I'm giving this video, to try to give some education. And I'm talking about this largely off the cuff, even though I wrote it all out ahead of time, because this was our reality. For those of us born in the 70s and earlier, we were taught this in school. In high school, we had required reading books called Animal Farm, Atlas Shrugged, Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World. These are all um, uh, books, fictional books, that were used as tools to teach mankind, to teach children, to teach young adults, and even grown-ups, how awful these regimes are, by taking and fictionalizing the reality of life in these systems. Atlas Shrugged is a very, very big book that talks about fictionalizing America turning into the Soviet Union. And my goodness, if we haven't been doing that for the past 10 years. Um, so I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions, and hopefully I've still got you. It's only been a couple of seconds, but do you hold any beliefs today, right now, political beliefs that you did not hold a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago? Do you believe something today that maybe a year or two ago that you had completely had the opposite view of that position? And if you do, how did that happen? If you in your youth, or you were a person who believed that the United States was supposed to be a strong country and a big force for peace in the world, and today all of a sudden you don't want to hear that anymore and you don't think that's true, whether either opinion is true or not, how did you get from something so core and so true to you to something else being so core and so true? How did that happen? Do you hold any political beliefs today that are incongruent, meaning that you can't apply the same philosophy to get the same answer from two separate things? One thing is on the abortion front. Are you okay with aborting babies in the womb, but against the death penalty for convicted murderers? Are you okay with killing an innocent, but not okay with killing a guilty? Do you have any beliefs in you today that, and you may not even realize it, you may have to go and take stock and say, wait a minute, do I actually hold these things? Because you probably do. And we all do to a degree. But if you do, how did it happen? And if the answer to these are yes, and or maybe if your answer is maybe, please keep listening because I'm going to tell you how that happened to you. Um, their socialist, Marxist, communist dictatorships had a method of destroying societies by making us confused. And they would do this by introducing crazy, crazy ideas into society through the media and through the schools that would get people to believe 1 + 1 is 2, but 2 + 2 is 5. To get people to be so programmable and so just skulls full of mush, to coin a phrase from Rush Limbaugh, that they would then be able to come in and take over the society because the internal chaos that these ideas would ultimately cause would cause a society to actually implode. And they use these things to destroy societies so they could replace the authority with themselves. So this is how the Soviet Union would take over countries. And guess what? It's how they decided to take over this one. During the Cold War, they launched a series of goals right here. Oh, it disappears because of my fake background. The 45 communist goals as read into the congressional record in 1963. I'm going to put a link to this in the comments just about everywhere this will be. But if you want the written out version, go to firstcenturychristianity.net and you can have the whole written out part and a link to these communist goals. And so this is in 1963, a Democrat congressperson, a leftist congressperson, decided to have these goals read into the congressional record to let the country know what was being done to us. We won the Cold War. Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher ultimately defeated the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union collapsed on itself and it went away. But nobody stopped doing this to us. We were already on autopilot. So if you look at these things, the number two here is the United States' willingness to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. That's a pretty big one, isn't it? That our willingness to withdraw from a conflict with the Soviet Union because we were afraid of having a nuclear war. We were afraid that they would actually launch the nukes. My friends, that happened on Friday. Okay, what you need to go read these things because this is happening to us right now. And if we don't slow down and turn this ship around, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So if I go through and just pull some random ones out of here, gain control of all student newspapers, get controls of the schools and use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda, soften the curriculum, get control of the teachers' associations, and put the party line in textbooks. They knew that they weren't going to defeat the baby boomers and the World War II generation, but if they could get into the schools, they could introduce their ideas over time and they would become acceptable. In fact, they would become normal, which is what has absolutely happened to us. Use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Have we seen any protests at campuses that make absolutely no sense in the past 4 or 5 years? Have we seen students on television at campuses protesting in favor of Islamic jihad and the murder of Jews? Oh, we have. We have seen students and faculty putting on these these jihadi scarves and protesting against Israel after October 27th. They didn't believe that stuff overnight, my friends. The stuff was introduced to the curriculum over years and years. Continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. And also to put art into things into place that's not art. To call ugly, nasty things, or even things that a child could paint, as fine art, in order to get people to disbelieve what they're seeing with their eyes. The one of these things that really gets me is that in Council Bluffs, Iowa, just outside of Omaha, there's an overpass where they have these 50-foot tall piles of garbage, and they on both sides of the overpass, it's just garbage, but it's put up as art. This is all over the country. You see people taping a banana to a white piece of paper and calling it art. These things didn't happen overnight. They were done to us intentionally. Eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the grounds that it violates the principles of separation of church and state. You see, they really needed to get rid of religion, particularly Christianity and Judaism, because Christians and Jews have a morality that comes from on high, not from the state. And Christians and Jews have a book, our book, Christian book, a little bit bigger than the Jewish book. But we have the Torah and we have the Ten Commandments, and we believe in the morality of the God of Abraham. If you have a governmental system that wants to replace that morality, you have to replace or eliminate the religion. Present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as natural, normal, and healthy. My friends, what have we seen? And this started in the 90s by normalizing homosexuality to the point that our current president got elected primarily because he believed that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and he was going to get that nonsense out of our public square and restore normalcy with respect to gender and sexual preferences. But guess what? It's a Sophie's choice. A Sophie's choice is a phrase for having to make a decision between two bad options, because a president is not a moral person by any stretch of the imagination. So just because he's good on one part of morality while having a slew of wives and mistresses in another makes this even more confused. Discredit the American founding fathers, present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man, and also make them out to be racist. So this list goes on and on and on. I'm just giving you a sample in the hopes that you will listen and go click the links, because most of the list is done. And the deception is the key here. This is not somebody coming and telling you, hey, I want to change America to a top-down structure where we centralize all the power and you lose all your rights. Let's vote on that. That's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is to get us to fight each other over stupid things, so that way we are weak and a much stronger power comes in and takes over. Because the communists and the socialists and the fascists don't believe in the 45 points of communism. Those were a weapon put in place to destroy our society. They believe in heterosexual, monogamous creation of children. They believe, but they just want to be the ones to control it all. And unfortunately, in this case, they've got us fighting against each other, and there is no Soviet Union, except there is a bad guy over there who sees this happening and wants to take advantage of it. They had to get rid of religion so they could switch it to the state. I know I already said that, but guess what? Religion is almost completely eradicated from Western society, except for the bad religion, the top-down one called Islam. Christianity is a complete shadow of what it used to be. The preachers even though it's Sunday and Christmas and Easter, the stuff we don't believe in, the preachers used to be really powerful and really strong on this topic and on morality in general. And today, we even see the Roman Catholic Pope softening on the homosexual union. What is that all about? The United Methodist Church accepting all manner of debauchery from their pulpits. Episcopals. These used to be very strong organizations with bad doctrine, but they were good on morality. Does anybody think that John Wesley intended for the church that he started to be ordaining homosexuals and females? It's not reality. Nobody believes this. So we've had 2 generations now who are largely unchurched. When we preach the gospel and we try to reach people with the truth of Genesis to Revelation, we used to talk to people who grew up in a Sunday school and knew their Bible. And we could just go take a couple of pieces that they were missing, plug them in, and make the whole thing make sense. And they'd go, oh, yeah, I am supposed to be keeping the commandments. Today, we've got 2 generations. I don't know the Bible at all. The communists won. They got rid of our morality, and they can replace it with whatever they want. And it can change with an election, with a commercial. This is all an operation to condition us to believe lies. Today, with the internet being almost universally accessed several times a day by everyone in the developed countries, lies spread like wildfire and never get put out. It's a shock that socialist media should be called socialist media at this point. Truth looks stranger than fiction. The words that I'm talking are probably offending people right now, but this was normal 40 years ago, 30 years ago. We lost it. I saw an article on Friday spreading all over the internet like wildfire that said Norway refused to refuel one of the United States nuclear subs because it stopped to get fuel. And Norway's upset with our president over the meeting with Zelensky. And people were believing this, and they were repeating it. They're so stupid to not realize that a nuclear submarine doesn't get refueled. It doesn't stop off and top off the tank of uranium in Norway. That's not a thing. The thing about a nuclear submarine is it doesn't need to be refueled for 20 years, and it's done in the United States, not in foreign lands. This is crazy. This is crazy that people are so upset and whipped into a frenzy that that article was probably posted on the internet as a joke, just as a joke, in order to see how far it would go. And there are now millions of people walking around this country who think Norway wouldn't refuel our nuclear submarine. It's ridiculous. Class warfare and straw men are how these violent revolutions get kicked off. And I want you to be aware of what is actually the goal here is not a peaceful transfer of us from our corrupted constitutional republic into a totalitarian regime where we all just keep going to our jobs and swear allegiance to a guy instead of our God. That's not how it works out. I'm trying to talk very basic here. The purpose of all of this chaos is so that we can be violently overthrown and executed. In the Bolshevik Revolution is about 100 years ago when Russia was czarist. It had a kingdom. It had a monarchy, and the people threw off the monarchy to become this Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, where a guy named Stalin convinced everybody that they were going to get the wealth of the monarchs, and everybody was going to get their equal portion through a concept known as from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. He went around the country and he told everybody it's unfair. You're working to make these guys rich. You need to hate them. You need to hate them. You need to hate them, until they got to the point where they were mad enough that they would pick up rifles and violently overthrow their own country and murder the czars. In which case, guess who got all the wealth? The people didn't get the wealth. The people didn't get the power. Stalin got the wealth and the power. It was a complete con. And it ushered in 80 years of misery for the Russian people and their satellite states under the USSR. It's a Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Communism and socialism is the same thing. Okay. Hitler used the Jews as strawmen to gin up hatred for the country, to have a violent overthrow of the status quo and this group of people that he could blame for every problem they have, while he himself took credit for every good thing that they had. And it was a night called Kristallnacht, which is a night where the government went and smashed Jewish shops and windows and stores to make it look like the public was making a violent overthrow of the Jewish people, which he then used as violent to violently take over all of Europe. And the Nazi Party was the National Socialist Party. There's no difference between communism and fascism. They're both totalitarian regimes where the power is centralized in a dynamic figure who ends up being a king, but would never call himself a king. Say he's just a servant. He's a man of the people. We have that on both sides of the aisle in the country today. The Democrat Party says, "Oh, we're a man of the people. We're out there with the workers." And now the Republican Party, we're out there with the workers. And everybody needs to hate the wealthy. In fact, you need to hate your neighbor who makes a little bit more than you. It sounds familiar to those of us who were taught to hate this growing up. It sounds familiar to those of us who were taught better by our parents and by a school system that no longer exists. Because, my friends, I learned this in the public school system. I learned the reality of totalitarian dictatorships in the public school system, graduating from high school in 1991. Today, what do they learn in a public high school? That Johnny can become Sheila. Complete nonsense. Class warfare does not even make sense anymore. They're getting us to hate each other based off of a non-issue. In my neighborhood, and probably yours, you live next door to a truck driver, a fireman, an accountant, a real estate agent, an engineer, and a pipe fitter, and a welder, and an electrician, and a nurse, and a doctor. We have a standard of living in the West that is outstanding. And we have no reason to be jealous of somebody because they get paid on salary and you get paid on overtime and you get paid on commission and you get paid on capital gains because you invested wisely. That is evil. The 10th commandment is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's stuff. Maybe the 9th. And 10th is his wife. Coveting your neighbor's stuff is absolutely evil. It's against the Bible, and it is not how this country was founded. This country was founded on everybody having an equal shot, but not an equal outcome. And you can have highs and you can have lows. And if you choose to be a wage earner today, you can get up to 30, 40, 50 bucks an hour. There are some people out there, longshoremen out in California, making $150,000, $200,000 a year, getting paid hourly. That's great. But they need to pay the same taxes as the advertising executive making the same money. Because if you think the way you make money is more important than your neighbor, what you need to do is go over to your neighbor's house and knock on the door and say, hey, look, I know we have same house, same cars, make the same amount of money, but because I'm a laborer and you're an accountant, you need to give me $1,000 right now. Because that's what you're doing. You're trying to use the power of the state to take from somebody that isn't more wealthy than you, but you think they are, to give it to you. That, my friends, is the wealth redistribution of the Communist Party of the USSR. That is communism. And it must be rejected. You are not entitled to your neighbor's stuff. And if that thought is in your head, you need to stop and ask, where did that come from? Everybody in this country is paying more for eggs, and everybody in this country is paying more for health insurance because of mistakes that our government has made equally across the board. But that doesn't mean you get to go take and steal from somebody else, let alone do violence to them. It's obviously wrong and amazing to me that people are openly saying that some are more equal than others. And friends, that is a quote from the book Animal Farm. And it was used to illustrate the fallacy of communism, because it always turns out that they talk about equality, making everybody equal. See, they want to make everybody equal. They want to make everybody the same. But then when the rubber hits the road, they are living high on the hog and you are not. And we have to stop this before it is too late. Friends, brothers and sisters, countrymen, we need to understand that this happens through mob rule. I just put out a video about that last week, and I'm doing it again because this is really, really problematic right now. We are all at each other's throats on the freeway. We're at each other's throats on the internet. We're suspicious of each other because this was done to us, and we have to stop it and give each other the benefit of the doubt. We have to turn the other cheek. We have to stop with the class envy and the wealth envy, because it generates a hatred where Cain slew Abel. This is one of the oldest sins in the book. Have you ever got in a bad mood and decided that you were upset and you made a rash decision or a rash judgment against your loved one, against your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your house, somebody in your household, somebody at your work, and then you turn around, when you cool off, you realize you got to apologize and eat crow because you shouldn't have done it? I've done this way more often than I should. For somebody who knows the book, I should not have this problem. But if I have it, I'm guessing everybody else does. And I'm guessing that's how that they're trying to get us to go at each other's throat, so that whoever this they is, because there isn't an enemy anymore. There isn't a Soviet Union to come take us over. What's going to happen if we continue down this road is that this country is just going to disintegrate, which maybe that's how it ends, because the United States of America is not in the Bible. In the last days, it's talking about nations that are not on this continent. So maybe this is how it all ends. But my friends, brothers and sisters, countrymen, if you're still listening to this, please share it. The wheels are coming off our society, and many are actually cheering it on. And this is what happens when the Soviets came into these countries and took it over, is that the people were cheering that hammer and sickle coming into their country, and they didn't regret it until it was too late and the Soviet boot was on their neck. In this case, we all could starve. We all could just end up shooting each other. It could be really, really bad. Our leaders are fanning the flames of conflict domestically and internationally in order to bring their own political power. It used to be only one side did this, and the other side was the, hey guys, let's cool down. Guess what? Both sides are doing it now. They're fighting fire with fire. And you know what happens when that breaks out? More fire. Their leaders are fanning flames of conflict, and then when they get the groundswell of people ticked off, they're turning around and making decisions which feeds the mob. This makes no sense. The leader of the FBI and the leader of the Department of Justice were just put into office like a week ago, and the people are already crying for their ouster because they didn't get instantly what they wanted. That's childlike behavior, but it's the same mob rule that killed the Messiah. And my friends, we need to cool off and make sound judgments before decisions are made that cannot be unmade. Putting this on a religious channel, our church, because we need to get back to basics here. The Bible doesn't condone any of this behavior, but instead of hitting you with a bunch of verses, I decided to talk to you as a neighbor, as a countryman, as a fellow patriot. I'm going to hit you with all sorts of Bible verses about thou shalt not, which I guess they did throw in here. No stealing, no coveting, no adultery, no on and down the list. You don't make rash judgments, but on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every matter of law be decided. Not because some leader that you like, that tells you what you want to hear, tells you to be mad at somebody. You don't do that. That's not how you be a good Christian or a good Jew or a good neighbor. You are to love your neighbor as you love yourself. You are to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. On these two hang all the law and the prophets. And if we want to continue to be able to worship Yahweh the way that we see fit, we need this country and we need this society. It's just plain simple truth. So thank you. May Yahweh bless you and keep you in the name of his son, Yeshua.